You know, instead of the Mashigan, I probably would have called this the Toledone. Welcome back to the Skilled Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. Today we're taking a first look, and then we're going to do a lot of stuff to the new Roc Hobby, or FMS, Mashigan. And here it is. It's a, well, I don't want to say what it is exactly, but it's definitely a Jeep albeit smaller than a real one, but not by much. This is a very large 10th scale. It's actually closer to 7th scale. It's called the Mashigan. And it's a weird name for sure, but I get what they were going for. It does have Michigan license plates, although a Euro-style Michigan license plate? Anyway, weird names and bizarre license plate choices aside, this is most definitely FMS's largest and most scale realistic RC crawler in ever. They've never done this before. They've never really done 10 scale. They did a couple 6 scales with the Willys and the Jimny, but this is their true first foray into what I would consider the hobby grade RC crawler market. And I have to say right away, it looks fantastic. They really did a phenomenal job on the looks of this, and it is a hard body plastic ABS body, and they got the details pretty correct. There's no badging, of course, because it's not a licensed body, and there are a few minor inconsistencies. The rear fenders aren't exactly totally accurate to the proper YJ, but they're pretty close. It's got running boards, it's got mirrors that swivel, it's got opening doors, it's got an opening tailgate with spare tire. It has the glass on the back opens too, but it's a bit dodgy because the spare is so huge. It's got soft rubber seats on the interior, and I gotta say, it's a very well detailed interior at that. They really spared no expense. The detail work is fantastic on this body. It looks excellent. The paint, metallic red, not probably a factory color for that day and age for a YJ, but it looks pretty good. By the way, real Jeeps have square headlights. It looks fantastic. Nice warm glow from the LED lights. That is the only set of lights, by the way. Only headlights on this truck. No other lights whatsoever. It does come with a 35-turn 550 can brushed motor. It also has a 1040 waterproof ESC. The servo is of dubious quality. It doesn't work all that well. It's a lot of weight and a lot of truck to be pushing around, so I'm not super surprised by that. It is a bit of a letdown considering the rest of the quality of the vehicle. It comes with a FlySky radio, just like the one that you see here. Digital controls for that. Plenty of power. It will run on 3S LiPo batteries. Everything goes under the hood. They actually really did think of all the details there. Really easy to get at all of those electronics in there. We're going to take the whole body off here in a moment so we can get a better look at all of the mechanicals. But starting with this body, there is a lot of really great stuff going on here. It is pretty fantastic. They've got the hood tie downs. They've got rear view mirrors with real glass inside them, so it's actually a mirror. The doors open quite satisfyingly, and the whole interior is just outrageous. They did an amazing job on that interior. It's very realistic, very detailed. There are some decals included to throw into the dashboard once we get to that stage, but we've got a lot of stuff to do before we do that. Wheels and tires, it is a plastic beadlock and a knockoff of the Proline Hyrax tire. The foams are extremely soft, not a lot of pliability there. Well, actually too much pliability. It is a vented beadlock, so at least there's that going for it. Not really super scale accurate to the rest of the truck, which is unfortunate because they, nailed all the details. I would have liked to have seen something a little more realistic in the tire and wheel department, something certainly more period correct. And I'll be modifying that and changing that before we even take this out for a test drive, because I have a feeling and I'm just being honest here, that while it looks fantastic, the driving and the capability of it is going to be somewhere middle of the road. It's not even going to come close, in my opinion, to something from Axial or Element or Traxxas. It is really model first, RC car second. And I think that's fair to say. FMS is really going for the realism market first, and then they're going to start dragging people in with the electronic and the RC side of it. And that's okay. I think that's okay. It's not where I would want to start, but it certainly does give you a good base on which to build. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to buy this specifically just for the body and the interior and all the great detail, and then they're going to build a new truck underneath it, or at least modify and take what exists there and beef it up a little bit. Let's get the body off. I'm going to show you a few things, including taking the roof off, because this is just like any other you can take the roof off and expose the full interior. So let's do that first, then we'll take the whole body off and take a good look at the chassis. Okay, and 4 screws later, we've now got the top off. Very easy to remove that. Where did I put it? Very easy to remove that. No big deal at all. Nice piece though. It's got a nice flat black texture to it, just like the real deal. They did a good job of that. Just 4 screws holds it on though, so I would be very careful in any rollover situations, because you may break it. But looks great without the top. This actually looks really, really good. The roll cage isn't to scale. It should be a little bit thicker. I know for a fact on my YJ, I had a Sahara back in the day, it had a padded system that went around the roll bar. I'd like to add that to this, I think, for that little bit of extra realism. But you get a good look at the interior now, because that top is off. And man, oh man, they got all the details right, I'll tell you that much. The dashboard is spot on. It's got the transfer case shifter, it's got the regular shifter. One thing I forgot to mention, when you turn the steering on the remote, it also turns the steering wheel in the interior. So pretty cool to see that. It's on a separate servo, which is a nice little bit of business. FMS tends to do that fairly regularly with their models, so it's nice to see that when they scaled up, it does that too. All the door panels are separate molded pieces from the actual doors, so you can take this whole thing apart and paint it, which is exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to strip this metallic red paint, and we're going to go with the metallic tan and do a Sahara model just like the one that I had. All the great interior details. Another piece of glass. There's a little piece of protective tape on there to keep that nice and shiny. There we go. Peel that off. Looks amazing. They really did go all out on the details, and it's pretty accurate, I have to say. Despite it not being anywhere close to 10th scale, it's more like 7th scale, like I said. They really did get all the details correct, and it looks fantastic. The interior floor plan is black, and it's a bit shiny for my liking. I definitely want to knock that back. But otherwise, it's with the half doors, it looks spectacular. I think a different wheel and tire combo will definitely be in order as well. FMS did an amazing job of making this look extremely realistic. Now, a couple other minor inconsistencies. If you wanted to, you can have this windshield tilt down. They have hinges built into it for it, metal hinges, I might add. But then you've got these 2 pieces of roll bar just kind of sitting out, so you'll want to unscrew them from either side and get rid of them entirely to kind of clean that look up a little bit. As for drivers, 7th scale means they should be about 10 inches tall. Those are going to be difficult to find. I've got a driver on order. He's 9 inches tall, so he's going to be a little under 6 feet in real life. But I think he'll probably fit in here better than a 10-inch figure would anyway. Now, let's get the whole body off and get a good look at the actual running gear and chassis of this truck. Okay, 8 screws later, we've got the body removed from the chassis. It is a steel C-channel chassis with some plastic inserts to kind of keep everything a little more rigid. Still has a fair bit of flexibility built into it. Whether that's intentional or not, I don't know. Probably could just be a bit of plastics quality. Short shocks mounted to the chassis rather than on shock hoops like you might expect to see. Still a decent amount of travel for this style of truck and what the intended purpose is. Like I said, big 550 can 35 turn brushed motor up front, connected to a transmission of some sort. And then we've got some goofy things happening for sure. There is a slipper clutch, and that's what... I've never seen this before, but that's where the output shaft also is. And then you get a dog bone to a transfer case, and then your outputs to the axles. Those are plastic drive shafts, but this whole thing is pretty interesting. I've never seen anything like this, and I'm just trying to figure out if these grub screws go all the way through a pin or not, if they go all the way through that stub or not. We're gonna have to check that out because that is bizarre. In fact, let's just take that off right now and see what's going on back there, because I've never seen anything quite like that. Yeah, it is a pin that goes all the way through. Oof, that is a narrow little pin. So I'm gonna say that this is definitely meant for more of a scale driving experience, less of a rock crawler experience. Even on the bench in my limited testing, I did find that slipper clutch was set pretty loosely. I gotta see what's in that transmission. Let's open that up. All right, so after opening it up, we see we've got a, looks to be like 32 pitch gears, pinion to a top gear, which then goes to another shaft and another gear, and then to a larger spur, and then our output, which has the slipper and the actual output shaft in one. It's an interesting compact design. There isn't much to it, but it is strange. It's obviously not what I was expecting to see, but just it's a bizarre way to do it. It doesn't seem to offer much in the way of reduction either. That's certainly something I saw right away. There's not much reduction, but compact at least. And it is bearing supported, so that's good to see too. Doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of options for you to change the gearing. Maybe you can change that top. Maybe you can change that top gear. I guess you could try a smaller gear and get more reduction, but it's still doesn't look like it's going to be much in the way of user serviceable in terms of possible changes. Very unique setup though, I will say that for sure. I'm used to seeing a lot more bushings these days. It's certainly a pretty smooth driveline. And that 1040 ESC does give you a pretty decent drag brake. I feel like they went with a 550 can because of the size and the weight of the vehicle, but I think a good brushless 540 will do just fine in this truck. In fact, I wouldn't want to put too much more power into it if I'm honest. I'm not totally sold on that transmission transfer case setup yet. We're gonna have to tighten that slipper a bit too. There is a very narrow battery tray here that's been sort of impeded by some glue. They use glue and these wire wraps to kind of clean up all the wiring under the hood, which is nice. It's a good touch, but they didn't include any straps. You should have some Velcro straps here in order to sit a battery in. Let's get the calipers out there. It's only 22.61 millimeters wide, so you're gonna have to find some super narrow batteries. Oh, that chair. I don't even know if most of your typical packs, like this Reedy 4500 milliamp hour pack, isn't gonna fit in there at all. Like, it's too narrow. So you're gonna have to find some narrow batteries in order to fit properly into that battery tray. There's the diff opened up so you can get a good look at the insides there. It looks like a machined gear with a pot metal locker. It is supported by bearings, but there is no grease in there. Completely unlubricated from what I can tell. These axles do look like the ones that come on the Jimny, the 6th scale Jimny, so probably some carryover there as well. You also get a good look at the shocks. They are oil-filled shocks. Both of them are already leaking. Yeah, 4-link front, 4-link rear, all mounted on a very smooth skid on the bottom. So yeah, pretty typical layout. I would have liked to have seen leafs right out of the box. YJ's had leafs. It would have been great to see that here. It is an upgrade that you can purchase later on, so hopefully we'll get those at some point as well. But there you go. That's a look at the chassis itself, and we're certainly going to do more to the truck itself to make it look a bit more, unique. So that's going to be the next thing you see as soon as I hit stop on this recording. You'll see a finished, better looking truck, hopefully. Well, not magically quick, but quick enough. Here's what I came up with. I decided to make it a Sahara because these are much better looking. It's a much better trim package, believe me. This is still the Mashigan. Mechanically, it's exactly the same, but visually a little bit different. I ended up mixing my own paint to match a reference that I found on the internet of a typical YJ Sahara. This is sort of like a champagne or a woodland brown, sort of in between those two colors probably, but close enough for me. I also opted to paint the top tan because I thought the tan roofs looked a lot better on the YJ. We had one just like this. It was a pretty amazing little truck, and I really liked it. Fun fact, my dad actually worked for Chrysler and AMC at the time. He moved to the Canadian plant where they were making YJs, and then he retooled it to make TJs after that. So a little bit of history lesson there, and I'm a proud Jeeper. And it's just nice to have a little bit of history with this specific vehicle and make it look more like how I wanted it to. Other things here, pinstripes to match the Sahara trim level. The logos here on the sides, these were from rc-crawler.it. No website anymore, but you can find Giuseppe on Facebook. He'll make emblems for you in any size you like, and I actually had him scale these up so they match the 7th scale of this body. What else? Oh, well, obviously wheels and tires have changed. We're actually going a lot more accurate with actual 6-spoke steel wheels. These were actually on this trim package in that sort of champagne gold color. Those are from CC Hand. They are a beadlock wheel. They are amazingly well detailed, and they come with the sticker on there as well. I opted to go for the Toyo Open Country tires. These are the Proline ones. This is the 4.65 inch tall tire. I think it looks really good on here. It's a lot more accurate for what a out of the factory would look like. I'm pretty pleased with that. Let's flip it around and get a look at the back of the tailgate here. Everything painted again as well. Your taillights may be upside down from the factory. If you want them to be more accurate, flip those panels around and you'll have the reverse lights at the top where they're supposed to be. I added a little tiny reflective sticker on there to make those really stand out. Otherwise, that's it. Took the spare tire off because I did not want to have a spare on here, but I left the holder as if maybe he had to swap spare tires and doesn't have another one. The other one's still at the garage. It's flat. Something like that. Who knows? But yeah, everything still functions properly. The top back tailgate door opens. Everything's the same. Like I said, mechanically, nothing's different. Just cosmetic changes. To do this pinstriping that you see on the sides here, to do all this pinstriping, I just used some vinyl stickers that I had for my Cricut, and I just sliced them with my X-Acto and just kind of tapered them and made them fit. I think it looks really good, adds a little bit of dimension to the overall look of the truck. Very happy with this. You'll notice there is a driver in there. That is a man. That man is from Star Wars. May the source be with you. Actually, he's not from Star Wars. He's a Star Trek generation man. That's Patrick Stewart, or Jean-Luc Picard. He's a 9-inch tall guy. He's not perfect. 10-inch guy would be absolutely, I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. 10-inch guy would be absolutely perfect. They don't make a lot of action figures in the 10-inch size. So 9-inch, that's the best I could do. But I think he looks pretty good in there. One other exterior detail. I forgot to add license plates. I should do that. I replaced the flat panel here with a more accurate one. I just designed and printed this myself. It says the actual type of vehicle this is on there, just like the real one does. Just a nice little piece of trim and just a nice detail to kind of add to the overall look. Now, not only did I paint the exterior, but I also painted the interior. So let's get this cap off here. The roof comes off quite easily. like you would expect. Not at all like that in real life. I can tell you from experience. Soft tops are a lot easier. This is not a soft top. But you can see that some changes were made to the cage. I opted to add some of this foam on the exterior of this cage to make it look more like the real thing. The real one had a cover over the steel roll bar. So I just wanted to add that. And all it is like insulation for, you know, your water line on your refrigerator. It's 1/4 inch on the inside, so it's slid right over the existing cage, and with a few trims here and there, I made it all look pretty darn good. I think it adds a nice little touch. Everything's still functional. Doors open, of course. Our man sits in there quite well, actually. Like he fits pretty nicely. I just wish he was a couple inches taller in his scale. But yeah, I did detail out the dash a little bit. It does come with a nice set of decals to really kind of set it off. But just adding a few little touches with some paint markers really sets that whole thing off. And I'm really pleased with the look. Everything else is mechanically the same. So why don't we stop looking at it on the bench and take it outside and see how it does. Now, of course, it's not stock. The wheels and tires are different. But I mean, if you're buying this for performance, there's a lot of other choices I would make first before choosing this. I think it is a very nicely detailed hard body. It looks fantastic. It's massive at 7th scale, but it sure looks darn good. And there's a lot of room for customizing. There were a lot of really cool Jeep YJ models, not just the Sahara. I'm sure there's a lot of other options out there that you could attempt too. And that's sort of my question for today. What would you do to the Roc Hobby Mashigan? Would you make it more Toledo-an? Would you make it a Sahara? What would you do? Put a comment down below. You know I love reading through your feedback, and I try to answer as many of them as I can. And if you're enjoying this video and you like seeing me ruin things before even driving them, hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so you get updates anytime there's a new video from the Scale Builders Guild. Okay, that's enough on the bench. Let's get outside and have some fun. Here we are outside with the Roc Hobby Mashigan, the 10th scale, 7th scale, not a Jeep, not a YJ. It's unlicensed, but did a darn good job of recreating a very iconic vehicle. And we're out in the murder forest today, as you can see. Quite foggy and menacing and kind of creepy, but makes for good video, I gotta say. And of course, you know, what I said early on was I should really tighten up that slipper. And then what did I not do? I didn't tighten up that slipper. So there is a lot of slip. You can hear it in there, but if you keep on the throttle, it does tend to do just fine. So we're just gonna power up this hill. Get there, yes. And I'm just gonna do a little driving. The doors do tend to pop open, but that's only under the most extreme circumstances. So as we're driving along here, I will say that I'm pleasantly surprised by the driving dynamics as a trail truck. I can't really test how it would do on the rocks because, of course, that slipper clutch is a little loose for that, but it does look really nice out here. It's a good looking truck. And it just kind of really, you know, once I did some customizing, I felt an awful lot better about how it looked. You know, the stock one, the metallic red, is nice, but it's not really my style so much. And, you know, I like to make things my own. And this is no exception. I mean, the large scale, the 7th scale format does give you a lot of real estate to play with. So if you're looking to do something on your own, oh, check it out, woodpecker. Oh, bye-bye. If you're looking to do, you know, a custom job, do something of your own, I wouldn't hesitate to get this. Now, the underpinnings, not exactly what I would call the best setup. I mean, the slipper clutch aside, it does do a pretty decent job, but there's a bit too much speed for me. Would have liked to have seen maybe a lower turn motor or more reduction at the transmission and transfer case. I think that would be a good place to start. But man, it's got great, good looks. I'm really pleased with how it looks out on the trail, in video, in photos. That 1040 ESC is pretty jerky in crawler mode. It's just like instant drag brake. A lot of low speed control. You can get a nice walking pace out of it if you want, which is good. Good to see that. Steering radius isn't great. Steering servo isn't great. But for a ready-to-run hard body, large-scale RC with a lot of room for some pretty cool customization, I think it's a pretty good start. It is linked, and I can only imagine that the leaf springs would make it worse. And if it's stealing parts from the 1/6 Jimny, then you're probably going to end up with leaf spring under. I think that's how that one was set up, which isn't totally accurate to a YJ. Will it ever be a rock crawler? Oh, heck no. I mean, this big, heavy hard body doesn't really lend itself to that sort of use or purpose. But man, is it ever a good-looking trail truck. Man, it's really nice. It's really nice. Once you see it in person, I think you'll agree. It isn't what I would say, what's the word? I wouldn't say it's quiet. Not a quiet truck to drive, especially with that slipping slipper. Like, there's a lot of mass to push around, and the heavy hard, see, look at that. That big heavy hard body doesn't help. But it does help in the realism department. Sure moves realistically. Looks fantastic. was really worried that suspension was going to be an issue, that it was going to be too bouncy. But after driving it for a bit, at sort of like a scale sort of accurate speed, I found that it actually looks quite realistic and moves at like a good kind of gait. And I think that's mostly because it's so heavy. Like, it's a very heavy hard body, and you kind of need some of that spring in order to make it feel realistic. And I think that they did a good job. Like, let's get over some of these bouncier elements here, and you can sort of see what I mean, even at real time. You get into, there's some of these erosion prevention strips here, and show you what I mean. Not too bad. Definitely rides it out better than you would expect. Cool. I could not have picked a creepier day to shoot video. It's a darn good looking truck, and FMS Roc Hobby did not pull any punches with the detail on the body. A full interior, lots of space for a driver, good dimensions. I mean, yeah, it's huge, it's 7th scale comparison to like what they say is 10th. This thing would look comically big because YJs were not huge Jeeps compared to, like, you know, anything else in sort of the 10th scale category. I really should have tightened that slipper. Then, you know what, I'm afraid it would have had too much speed. It's got a nice pace now, but you can tell that if you had given it the full beans, it would be a little bit too much. Okay, so there you go. That's a first look at the Roc Hobby FMS Mashigan, or as I like to call it, Toledo-an. And I think that's where we're going to end this outdoor adventure.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.